Hello, hello. Welcome to Rise and Shine with Alissa. I am your hostess, the consultress, bringing you awesome conversations with amazing people. In this age of disruption, we need new thoughts to come into our noggins so that we can expand our perspective and lead our futures from a better space. My goal here is to bring awesome content to you so that you can inform your life, make good decisions, and continue to exponentially grow, because that is the name of the game. And speaking of games, I have a fun little offer for you. So stay tuned through the whole episode because Robert and I are going to share something very, very fun. This gentleman, Robert McPhee, I have known for over a decade, and his work is really impactful and powerful, living a values-based life. How to align yourself with who you really are. And I couldn't be more excited to have you here, Robert, because I love the message that you're up to. I feel like I embody it in a lot of ways and can learn so much from you. So, Robert McPhee, welcome to Rise and Shine.
Well, thank you for having me and cheers. You got me to make my tea this morning, so I'm already grateful.
Sweet. We met back when I was doing a little bit of diligence around the human potential movement and becoming a certified trainer to help people exponentially expand. And you were one of those people in the room who were assisting with the exponential expansion. So I have a lot of love and appreciation for you. And I just want you to tell the people at home, a little bit about what you're passionate about in your work and how that shows up in your life.
Wow, where to start? And probably starting where you and I met, which is I had the amazing opportunity to work with Jack Canfield, who was the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul book series and wrote a book called The Success Principles. And that's the work that you were there to be trained in. And I had kind of jumped on that movement a little earlier and was so grateful for what I learned from Jack that I reached out and offered to continue to support his work. And that ended up leading to me being in that role you were describing, where I was actually the director of training for his organization. I was co-facilitating some of those trainings and doing all the logistics and all the things that are required to make them happen. And my passion for this work really kind of started as a spark when I was first attracted to his work, but really grew into I left the company that I had co-founded and went into doing this work because of being around Jack and his work. And the other thing, and I think this is something that you and I share, I ended up working very closely with Jack while my kids were really young. And that was what I call an unfair advantage. Being a parent is the most important thing to me. My relationships with my children, their well-being is really what's most important to me in my life. And so having the opportunity to literally just be hanging out with Jack Canfield while my kids were in those really formative years, I see the difference now. I don't think I fully realized it at the time. You kind of think everyone has, the same kind of resources you do. And then I'd show up to coach the kids in soccer, and some kid would march up to me and say, "I'm not good at soccer." I'd be like, "Ooh."
Listen, you don't know how good you actually are. Let me show you.
We'll see about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it really did grow into a passion for, very much like you described in the introduction, helping people live up to their full potential and feel like they're living a life on purpose and with meaning, and really making a difference in the world, because I find that gives people a lot more true satisfaction. Money is important, and we need to be making enough money to pay the bills and do the things we want to do, and that's all fine and good. But the real satisfaction we get, I think we all know too many wealthy people that are kind of miserable, and that's no way to live.
Money can't buy you happiness. It can buy you stuff.
Yeah.
But I think part of what the unfair advantage really stems from is having your eyes opened. Like once you see something and you can't unsee it everywhere else, having been trained in that transformational space, I began to see the whole world as my playground and my education space. So
Yeah.
when I was parenting, of course that was going to influence how I was going about curating their education too. And the people that you touch. And I came home and I'm like, oh my God, in my consulting business, I'm helping people weed out the same plants that are now starting to take root in my kid's garden. And I was like, I can't unsee that. So
Yeah.
taking the responsibility as a parent what I saw as a fun way to go about it was to bring them along for the ride. And for 6 years, we unschooled. But so that it changed my parenting, but it also brought me an awareness of like, you and I were talking a little bit about like the businesses that have shaped our identity and like who we've become. Like I too was once, I was born into the bagel business, so to speak. And some of the stuff that I learned early on was people pleaser times a million. And, customer service with a smile, that's all really who I am at the bottom of it. But also that like we're scraping for every penny that we can get or can find, and that it really set me back in terms of
Yeah.
like my money mindset, my ability to create positive cash flows in my life. And it took me a really long time to kind of unwind that. And that's some of the stuff you and I were talking about, like wait, so I think you got that seedling that we eventually had to like yank and weed out somewhere along your journey too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right about kind of the response that people have in terms of like once you learn this stuff, you can't unlearn it. But there was another really interesting phenomenon that I saw over and over again, especially when I was working with Jack. And I hear it now too with the values work that I'm doing. But with adults, there's this, why didn't someone teach me this in school? People are going through kind of those struggles and getting that hard wiring about how the world works, and we need to do this in order to get that kind of mentality. And then they go to a workshop or they read a book or they listen to a podcast, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, no one told me that. Like that's and these are just like the basics, like taking full responsibility for your life. It's nobody else's fault. For most of the population, that's like, what? No one told me, like I have a choice, like I could actually change things.
Yeah.
um and so it does make a real fundamental difference. And I love how you're kind of planting the seed for the game that we're going to be co-facilitating, that we're both really excited about,
Yeah.
with that money mentality, that we develop these ideas and these beliefs about money, about what our limitations are and about what we have to do and about what will make us happy and what will make us satisfied and feel fulfilled. And again, it breaks my heart to see so many people who chase down that path. If I just have more money, if I have a nicer car, if I have a bigger house, and they're chasing and they're chasing, and they get to the end of the line and they go, uh-oh, this
Yeah.
is not this is not really what I wanted, which is
Well,
literally what led me to be doing the values work that I'm doing now, which
preach.
helps people know what's really important to them and know which path they do want to be on. So when they do get there, they say, oh, yeah, this is what I declared was really important and what I really wanted more of. And here I am with more of it. Woohoo.
Yeah. And so that values-based life, like living a values-based life, it's a mantra, it's a key phrase, it's your website. When you know what it is that's important to you, it's really easy to identify what is priority and what is just distraction, noise, filler. So it gives you kind of a tool to be able to see things in a way that is less, I have to do these things to get to X, and more, what is it that I want, and what types of things fuel me, so that in doing them, I become the person who obviously gets to X, right? It's a very holistic way of seeing success, but it is not linear. Like again, I built the foundation of living this way long before I saw opportunities to go, oh yeah, that's definitely on point for me. Or you know what, I have to say goodbye to those friends because they no longer fit, who I'm trying to become. It's nice that I still have them. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you have friends for a reason, a season, a lifetime, and some of those reason and season people you naturally part ways with. But the lifetime folks, sometimes they take a different setting when you know what your values are. We have a great friendship. We've been together for a long time, and this also applies to businesses, by the way. I've had this client or I've had this associate for so long, that we've built this together, so we'll keep it on some level. What level of dial we make it maximum or minimum, like that's then the choice. But so for me, one of those core values is love. I want everyone that I meet, everyone that I work with, to feel like they are super important to me. It is the legacy that I get to carry forward from my father. I feel like everybody who met him knew that like he was present with them no matter what was going on. And so in my business and in my personal life, like I know that that value of fun and love are like super intertwined. Like, how do you help people? Like, I'm aware of this, but how do you help people to kind of become aware of it when they're stuck in that linear progression of like the hamster wheel we've all been trained to run?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to say this was all on purpose, but the truth is I kind of stumbled upon it. I was doing work. All my work was branded under a concept called excellent decisions, which was about making decisions and taking actions based on your vision and your values versus all the external stress and pressure we're under in today's world. There's no shortage of like people and advertising and social media and everything trying to push us in a certain direction, telling us we should live our life the way that would work for them. Um, but but then in the midst of doing that work about vision and values, I came to the realization that yeah, vision and values, and that's my definition of purpose. When you have a vision and it's aligned with your values, then you're on purpose. So you can literally check in and say, do I have a clear vision and have I done the values work to make sure that vision aligns with what's really important to me? And that's where the sense of purpose comes from. But I realized that because of that, like the values come first. I could have a really great vision, but if it doesn't line up with my values when I make that vision a reality, I'm going to kind of go, yeah, you know.
Yeah. So
But if
specifically, for example, if someone says, I want to create a, multi-million dollar empire and they're going to do it building it with real estate, and then they get to work, but one of their core values is spending time with family. I've seen a ton of real estate investors go the grow big, grow fast route, and they realize once they get there that they are freaking miserable. The thing they said they want doesn't actually bring them any more time with their family or, you know, freedom to be able to go on and do fun things with their friends or their colleagues. So, you know, again, so what kind of advice would you give to somebody who kind of has this big, hairy, audacious dream and goal, and how to retrofit it into how to identify what is going to move the needle for them for real, and not have
yeah.
them send them on this path that's going to have them crash and burn and go, oh, I learned now because I made the mistake? Like, how do you get in front of that?
Well, I would guess, I'm going to kind of answer your question with a question. I would guess that you've also worked with people who built a real estate business that allowed them to have lots and lots of really great quality time with their family, right? So building your own business, having the independence, having control of your time, being able to make decisions about how much of your time is going to go into, you know, building this business and traveling and all that kind of stuff versus how much of your time is going to go. And so you've probably had that experience with helping people create a successful real estate business too, because someone declared to you, made it clear to you that that was what was important to them. Yes, I want to build a successful real estate business, but I'm not willing to sacrifice quality time with my family. It's not one or the other. You
Mm-hmm.
work with people who have both, right?
Well, it is true that I do work with people who have both. What I find for the most part is we get top heavy in that left brain of like, here's what I think I need, here's what I think I need to do, here's what I think I need to measure.
All
And
that's all those external
some
influences. You need to do
and
this, you need to do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then it runs the show. And so
Right.
where do people, for me in my work, like where do you come back and you make the assessment around who you're becoming, who are you surrounding yourself with, and how does that lead to exponential growth? Oh, my dog says it doesn't. You
The
have to
dog
do the
agrees.
reflection. But
Best
so,
possible
wait,
barometer the dog is in.
you know, she is lovely, and she always comes up. She wants to be on the show, but she's too short. The camera doesn't go that far. But you know, to have that level of clarity around what will make what you want to come true, but what it is that you might have to sacrifice, that's the reflection points. Like that's the place where people sometimes forget that in order to get what we think we want, we have to understand why it is we want it in the first place.
Right,
And
right.
is what we're trying to build, does it bring us closer or further away from these things? So it's a little bit more nebulous. It's a little bit more under the radar of like, you know, grow, go, suffer to
Yeah.
succeed, hustle and grind. So do you have any mechanisms that allow people to take that assessment of like big dream, big goal, and also understand it in the context of their values?
Well, yes, I mean that my work is literally a mechanism to do that. But I think what you're touching on that's really, really important is like the syntax of this. So yeah, I want to create like a really successful business. Great, I'm off and running, and there I go. And I'm saying, wait, stop before you go. Ask yourself one more question, right? Ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? Why is this really important? In addition to the money I'm going to make, what else am I going to create here? What do I want to create? And the thing is, we have this amazing thing between our ears that is so good at like solving puzzles, like figuring things out, right? If we ask the right questions, it's really, really good at figuring stuff out. So if we don't ask the question, we're kind of wasting this amazing resource called our brain that will help us figure out how to have both, how to have that family time and have a successful business. But if we just charge off after successful business, we might land on a place called having both, but it's pretty unlikely. And like I'm just thinking as we're talking, I'm in the midst right now of facilitating an online workshop group, and I was on the third call. We do 4 calls in this virtual workshop, and I was on the third call with a group last night, and my heart was just like flowing because I was listening to these people who have been in this conversation now for 3 weeks about discovering what their highest values are. And we do that in a unique way. We actually divide values into 2 separate categories because it actually sounds like we're making it more complicated, but when we divide our values into 2 separate categories, which are what's most important to us and then how we want to show up in the world, we end up with values that are easier to remember and apply. So we're in this conversation last night about the 2 lists of values that these people have created. And I'm hearing them already in 3 weeks. I'm hearing them sharing. It's actually only 2 weeks because we're on the third call. So it's 2 weeks ago that we started. And I'm hearing the stories from these people about the conversations that they've been in and the decisions that they're making and the situations that they're handling with this new awareness of what's most important to them, how they want to show up in the world, what kind of person they want to be, and where they want to put their time and attention to create the kind of results and experiences that are most important to them. And it was totally inspiring to just hear them say, well, I found myself in this conversation with this client, and, usually they drive me crazy, but I remembered that, who I really am and what's important to me is being a kind and caring person. And all of a sudden, this person who usually drives me nuts and I just want to drop them as a client, but I don't, it's a really good revenue and whatever. And all of a sudden, I could kind of handle it differently. And that's the beauty of asking yourself those questions and get clear about your values and what's most important to you, in addition to, and letting that complement and work with that vision to create a big successful business and make a lot of money or buy a new house. And I'm a big fan of nice houses. I think that's great. But it's not about the house. It's about like, you know, place for my family to be, or a neighborhood that is full of people I love, or what. I mean, there's more there than, it's like the difference between a house and a home, I guess. I have a nice house, that's great. But what about a home? Like, that's
Hmm.
where the juice is.
I love that you were so articulate to tell us the difference between value, like creation of value,
Hmm.
and how to identify your values. It's not syntax, it's not vernacular that we have out there in the world on a, typical basis. It is something you really need to focus on and create so that you can identify what is most important. And so I love that that work comes before setting the visions and saying, if I had $1 million, like, great. Also, um, how do you want that money to flow to you? How active do you want to be in it? How passive do you want to be in it? Do you want to be the face of your business, or do you want to build something that can click all on its own? And having the values helps you to make those decisions and make those judgment calls much, much more fluidly and authentically.
Yeah.
Um, the the piece of your work that I think I'm taking home from this here is, can you just say again the 2 different pockets of values? How do I want to show up in the world and what's important to me? Did I get that right?
Yeah. So we call them priorities and ways of being.
Okay.
And your priorities are like nouns. They're what is most important to you. The areas of your life that you really, if you put your time and attention into those areas, you would create your life the way you really want it to be. So, like for me, I'll give you an example. I kind of already touched on this. Maybe it was before we started the recording, but my children, like my relationship with my children, is my number one priority. It's always been at the top of my list. That's number one. Number
Hmm.
two is making a contribution in the world. It's really important to me to be putting my time and attention into things that make me feel like I'm really making a contribution. You can probably hear it when I talk about my work. That's a big part of my contribution right now. Like I'm super excited about that because it's really important to me. Like I was talking about that workshop group. That's why I got so excited because it's important to me. Like I had a visceral experience of the contribution that I'm making. Number three on my list is my health and my well-being. Like I feel like I can't do these things unless I take care of myself. I eat well, I exercise, I meditate, things like that because it's important to me. So those are priorities. And and the second category we call ways of being. And these are adjectives. These are like the way we want to show up in the world, the qualities and characteristics that we really want to embody. So again, I'll just give you examples from my own list, like kindness and caring, which for me, I'm a big fan of combining. I was working with this group and they're trying to come up with their lists, and it's okay to combine, put things that are kind of the same together. And kindness and caring for me, like that's really important to be kind, show up in the world in all my relationships and be kind and be caring. Humility is another one. Like I want to be, is one of the things I learned from Jack, I want to be still open-minded and listening and learning from other people and not being like Mr. I've got all the answers, like keeping my humility in place.
Yeah.
Peace and peacefulness and calm is important to me. Like even when the stuff is hitting the fan, I like to be like that swan, it's like gliding across the water, but underneath the water, it's like whatever's going on. But I really like to be like peaceful and calm and thoughtful. It's important to me. So those are values to me. It's important to me to be that way. And yet it's different than my relationships with my children and making a contribution. And in my experience, when I have those two lists, my lists I keep in my phone, I have them in writing, I keep them all around me to remind me. And and it helps me like check in and say, am I showing up as that person I've declared I want to be? How's that humility thing going? I got on with Alissa and I was kind of Mr. Know-it-all. Maybe I ought to tone it down a little bit. Well, maybe I ought to let her talk a little bit.
This is your interview.
Yeah.
We were just joking that like it's fun to interview the interviewer. I was able
Yeah, I
to
have
riff.
my own podcast, and actually, you've been a guest on my podcast. People should go listen to that episode. It's super cool. But
Yeah.
but
Oh,
so I can check in and I can assess and I can say, how am I doing? And I can look for areas where I want to be doing better. Maybe I want to put, my relationships with my kids are great, but a couple weeks ago I went up to Seattle and I was skiing with them. And that's me making a choice to say this is really important to me, and so I'm going to put some time and attention on that and make sure it stays really good. And sometimes we look at our priorities and go, ooh, that one's not good at doing good at all. I need to put some time and attention on that because it's not what I want. But the
yeah.
idea is to always be moving in the direction of getting more and more aligned with living our life, with our decisions and our actions being driven by our values, by what's really important to me. Because there is no shortage of other people who will tell me what to do. If it's not my values that are driving it, it'll be someone else's, because there's always something telling you, you need to make more money, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, well, do I?
Yeah.
Good
There's
question.
so much noise out there. You have to be
Yeah.
able to make that determination for yourself, which is the thing that is not taught in industrial based school systems, which all of us on the planet right now have gone through.
Yeah.
So, taking the power back into our own creative genius hands and figuring out our own values so that the vision of our lives can emerge in alignment with that which we really want, not the things we think we need to have or that we've been told define success. Robert and I are here to tell you you're going to define success on your own terms. And the price is not necessarily right to just go out into the world and buy all the things that look like the success that someone else has told you. It is an inside job. It creates fulfillment and it creates prosperity. at the
Yeah.
end of the day, this audience here is parents, entrepreneurs, and investors. So prosperity to me is one of those kind of key components. A couple years ago it was my word of the year, and it's continued to be one of my top four values over time. Is like prosperity. I've been able to define it for myself now. When I first started out, it was defined as financial and monetary success. Then it shifted into being generous, and like this, it just developed and bloomed as I kept that value in mind. I saw more places to expand its definition and be willing to just expand how you think about things, because that's where all the juice is. So the
Yeah.
term success and the term prosperity, they are not externally defined. They're just touch points and touchstones for you to be able to grab that, take it into your life, and then make it your own. Really define it for yourself so that you can make better decisions and live your life accordingly. So,
Yeah.
Robert, I am so jazzed to kind of unveil what we're working on and what we're launching here this month. As Rise and Shine goes to its 100th episode, this is, I think, 98. But as I march forward into the 100th episode of this podcast, Robert and I have something really special for you. If you want to come and play, if you want to come and expand who you are, how you see prosperity, and how you're defining those mindset pieces and those decisions, how you're driving your business, how you're making your investments, how you're leading your family. Robert, take it away. What do we have for him?
So, so we're going to co-facilitate. So Alyssa and I were talking, we recently reconnected, and we were talking kind of about how we had first connected and where we had most recently connected. And she was reminding me that she had played a game that I had facilitated called the Prosperity Game. And the Prosperity Game is designed to help people really take a good close look at their relationship with money, and whether they have any like self-imposed limitations, any beliefs that are actually holding them back in the area of money. And it's a really profound game. I actually first learned it in a workshop environment. And there was this game that was played. It was a multi-day workshop, and over the course of the days, a song would play. And when the song played, we took out our little folder with the prosperity game in it, and there was a check. There was like a pretend check in there, and we got to make out the check. And then and they would give us the amount. They would tell us, the amount of the check for this version of the prosperity game is this amount. And we would write out the check, and then we would answer two questions about the check. Question one was, where did it come from? Did you earn it? Did you win the lottery? Did someone give it to you? Like, did you find it on the street? Like, where did it come from? You just had this money come into your life. Make up a story, really, about where did it come from, and make it as real as you can. And then the second question is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to spend it? Are you going to save it? Are you going to invest it? Are you going to give it away? Or whatever. It's, again, totally up to you. You get to make up the story about what you're going to do with this money. So it was this kind of silly game about money. But what made it profound was every time that song played, the amount of our check doubled. So over the course of whatever, the 3-day workshop, we started with, a check for, I don't remember what the numbers were, but anybody who knows about compounding, if you start doubling every time you do it, it doesn't take long for the numbers to get pretty big. And those simple questions of where did this come from and what am I going to do with it became really challenging for people. And everyone kind of had a different point in the game where the challenge showed up. But over the course of the 3 days, everyone confronted this like, oh, I don't know where that much money would come from. Like, I've never had that experience. And I've already bought a house, and I've already paid off my house, a car, and whatever. Like, I've already done this, that, and the other thing. And now what am I going to do? This money is still coming in. And it literally is so connected to the values question, because, once the bills are paid, and once you have the money in the bank, and once you've saved some money for security and all that, and you still have income coming in, what are you going to base your decisions on about what to do with that money? It's hopefully going to be your values. So we're going to be facilitating. Alyssa and I are going to be co-facilitating a game. We've made it virtual, so people who sign up to play the game will get an email. We're going to start on March 17th. I want to say, isn't that like
Ringo
Monday, March
Bra.
17th? We're going to play.
Yes, find
We're
your
going to
pot of
play.
gold.
We're going to play every day for every weekday, Monday through Friday, for 2 weeks. So on the 17th, you're going to get an email, And in the email, you're going to see a picture of a check. And it's going to be what I won't tell you what the amount is, but and there's also going to be a link to a Facebook group. And you'll click through to the Facebook group and you'll create a post. And the post will be your answer to two questions. Where did your money come from? And what are you going to do with it? And you'll see that you're not the only one playing this game. If you want to like scroll through and see what other people are doing with their checks, you can do that. If you want to cheer people on and encourage them or steal their ideas, whatever you want to do is fine. But it's a community game. It's a private Facebook group, so only the people who are playing the game will have access to it. But every day for 2 weeks, you will get a check in your email inbox, and you will click through and create a post. Where did my money come from? And what am I going to do with it? And just like that workshop that I was in, every day when you get this email, the amount of your check is going to double. And at some point, it's very likely you will have some very profound awareness about your relationship with money and kind of where your money set point is. Like where does this game venture into territory that's just not familiar and not comfortable for you? And the other thing we'll be doing, we'll have a call before the game starts, a Zoom call, to give people some insight about how to approach the game to get the most out of it. We'll also do a call in the middle just to check in with people and see how they're doing, because this can also be a little emotionally triggering. And it's kind of fun to hear how people are doing, and help people who might be a little triggered and might be struggling a little bit, but also to hear like the insights that are already emerging halfway through the game. And then once the game is done, the Monday after the game is complete, this is my favorite part. We will do a debrief call. We'll invite all the people who played to jump again on a Zoom call, and we'll hear stories about the insights that emerged for people and what they learned and what they're going to do differently as a result of playing this game. And for me, one of the coolest parts about this version is I get to co-facilitate it with Alissa. Like we're going to do it together. So you'll get her perspective, you'll get my perspective. And I think it really adds to that whole community element. It's not about in any way, shape, or form. It's not about me telling you what you should do with your money. It's a vehicle, it's a mechanism to help you really explore how to have a great relationship with money and how to have money really be your friend and supporting you. It connects so directly to this values work, to have your decisions about money really be driven by what's most important to you, by those priorities and that person that you really want to be in the world. So I'm super excited that we're going to be doing it, first of all, and we're going to be doing it, the two of us facilitating together.
Yeah, I'm so pumped. Again, I love it when we get to transcend thinking that has kept us trapped and we didn't even know it. The first time that I played the prosperity game, I think I got to the fourth check and I started sweating. like, like, I don't know where it came from. What do you mean? Stop pressuring me.
And it keeps coming. Stop, stop sending me so much money.
Yeah, I had no idea that I had a set point for money coming in. You always think like if I had all this stuff I'd be just fine, but it really is a tactical exercise because you're addressing like this feeling like, oh god, I have to say where it came from. Where did it come from? And you can only do so many like I wished on a genie lamp and got this money. After a while you're like, all right, seriously, I hosted a workshop. I got my windfall from whatever, so it is a fun creative exercise to kind of expand yourself in a way that allows you to do it with other people who are also on the charge to expand, and the better it gets, the better it can get.
And again, it's an opportunity to use this thing between our ears to ask some new questions and bigger questions. And I'm not a big fan of absolutes, but I'm comfortable saying everyone who plays this game like expands their thinking about money. Like, just in the process of asking questions, like you said, like, well, where would that amount of money come from? It's way beyond the paycheck that I get. Like Jack used to ask an amazing question. What would have to happen? Like if you're making $100,000 a year and then I send you a check for $200,000, like, and you just go, well, I don't know. That's the first response. Well, but what would have to happen? Like, what would you have to do differently? What would have to be different in your life? And your brain will just go into action, say, well, you could do this and this could happen. And you can take the easy way out and say, hey, I won the lottery or whatever. But if you challenge yourself a little bit and really ask and like, one of the things we do in the welcome call, spoiler alert, we say, play the game like it's real.
Yep.
And actually so in every email message, there's the image of the check, there's the link to the Facebook group, but there's also a little bit of insight about how to get the most out of the game. And I've been facilitating this game for years, and I've gotten to know the person who I learned it from very well. And so, there's going to be 10 email messages, and there's going to be 10 things to think about, like insights about how to get the most out of the game, and questions you can ask yourself about, well, how am I playing? Like, am I playing it like, it's just a fantasy game, or am I really saying, let's make this real? Like, what if I really did get a check for this much? Like, where would it really come from? And that can be uncomfortable, but oh man, it's so juicy. I don't want to give
It's
it
so
all away.
good. It's so good. And I can't wait to play it with all of you. So please say yes.
Oh, and by the way, one other thing, it's free. Like, but that's our final offer. We're not going any lower.
We're done negotiating.
Like, yeah, it's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
But
So
it's I have all the mechanisms set up to do it and everything, so it's not like a huge. It takes quite a bit of time, but I also, you can probably tell listening to me talk about it, I love to do it, like to scroll through this Facebook group and see what people are sharing and see people interacting with each other, to be on these calls and hear the stories. And again, especially that debrief at the end where people go, oh my God, this, I never thought about this, and I've already done that. And like, I just love doing it.
Yeah, and I'll be playing too. So
oh yeah, we play along.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You'd think I'd have it all figured out now. I don't know how many times I've played the game,
more you do it.
For me, still, there's always some moment of, oh my God.
Right on. So we are so grateful that you tuned in to listen to us wax philosophical about values and ways to implement that in your life, and different ways to think, because in the age of disruption, nothing's going back to normal. Everything's new and up for review. So please make sure that you join us every single Monday here at Rise and Shine. Click like, subscribe, leave us a comment what you found valuable from this interaction right here and what you want to see more of. We are so happy to have you here. Check the show notes for where to register, or you can text me and I will get that link to you personally. And that number is 516-782-5428. Text me the word prosperity and I'll get you hooked up. So thanks a million, Robert, for being here. I look forward to playing with you, expanding, and bringing community together as we all get to rise and shine together. See you next time, friends. Same bat time, same bat channel. Bye.
Bye-bye.